Ladies and gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of NJC, I want to welcome every one of you in this very special evening. Of course, I have a very long speech, but as Latko says, I'll put it in the internet on the website. Let's make it short. First of all, we're here to celebrate that today NJC became, in the natural decision of the General Assembly, an international organization based in Baku, Azerbaijan. And we are here to say that this is because we have two dreamers that are co-chairs that have been dreaming from the day one and pushing that global Baku forum. The first one was having 30, the second one 60. Now we have more than 400 leaders all over the world, business, religious, social, political leaders. We're breaking records, and that is because of our two co-chairs that were dreaming, and their dream is becoming reality. Thank you, our co-chairs, dear Ismail and Vaira. It's also becoming possible because of our hosts. And we are here to say thank you also for the President Aliyev, for the people of Azerbaijan, for NJC, for the volunteers, for the young guys that are with us every second here, and we're enjoying a great hospitality and the great success of that forum. Thank you, Azerbaijan. And of course, even in that perfect organization we face tonight, logistics doesn't work perfectly, as you can imagine. Because of that, with a strong apology from myself and the board of AJC, we're still waiting for some awards on the customs in the port of Baku, which of course is not a bad thing, because this is how the system works. But anyhow, we will see also tomorrow more, but for tonight, we have a very special moment right now. And this is a moment where I want also to have your applause and to pay my tribute and the tribute of the board, of the members of the board of NJC, to a special friend, the President of Albania, Ilir Meta, who is with us tonight, who is with us being an acting head of state for 3 days. And we are appreciating Your Excellency, your passion for tolerance, for peace and understanding as we represent this, for dialogue and of course bringing solutions. And it is a great honor for me, ladies and gentlemen, to keep it short and to give the floor to our great friend, the President of Albania, Ilir Meta. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you very much, Rosen. It's a great pleasure and honor for me to be back in Baku. And the relations of Albanians and Azerbaijan people are very old. It's not only Trans-Adriatic Pipeline and other projects, but there are deep roots, and I'm sure that new projects will come up in the future, also between Western Balkans and your region here. I can post the thanks for tomorrow, Rosen, but I cannot post a special award, which is the third one and the final one. And it is my pleasure to award tonight a very distinguished lady, Madam Kerry Kennedy, who is very known for her distinguished work since 1981 as the president of the Robert Kennedy Human Rights, as well as Board of Trustees member of the Nizami Ganjavi International Center. Her distinguished work on diverse human rights issues, judicial independence, freedom of expression, ethnic violence, human rights and the environment, have been remarkable. She is the chair of the Amnesty International Leadership Council and has accomplished so much and done a remarkable job as an advisory board member of the Columbia Center on Sustainable Investment at Columbia University, as well as member of the board of directors of the United States Institute of Peace. She is a best-selling author of Being Catholic Now, 2000, Robert Kennedy, Ripples of Hope, 2018, and Speak Truth to Power, 2008, which has grown to include a photography exhibit traveling on 4 continents, as well as other work contributing towards peace. Thank you very much for accepting this award.
The President of the Republic of Albania, Ms. Rilirmeta, bestows upon Ms. Carrie Kennedy title the Knight of the Order of the Flag. As a token of gratitude for her remarkable contribution in promoting diverse human rights, judicial independence, freedom of expression, women's rights, and environmental issues. For her important role as chair of the Amnesty International Leadership Council, as well as a member of the board of directors of the United States Institute of Peace, identifying her as a peacemaking champion. The President of the Republic of Albania, Rilirmeta.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you to all of my friends here at NGIC. You know, I accept this award on behalf of all of the people at Robert F. Kennedy Human Rights who make our work possible, and also all of our friends here at NGIC. And I think this moment, being in this room with all of you and all of you world leaders who have given up so much of your life and your family to public service. I think about my father, Bobby Kennedy, who said that politics should be an honorable profession. And that's really, I think, what drew everybody here to politics. And I also think of my uncle, President Kennedy. During his inauguration, he famously said, "My fellow Americans, ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country." But then he followed that by saying, "And to the people of the world, ask not what the United States can do for you, but what we can do working together for the freedom of humanity." That's what this conference is about. That's what draws all of us together, and that's what we'll be able to do in the years going forward, and for that, I thank you. Hi. Good evening, everyone. Good evening, everyone. If I could ask your attention. Now, I know we've heard a lot of talking today. And we've been doing a lot of listening today. And so this feels like I'm finally getting a chance to speak. So I hope that you will take a few minutes and listen to these stories. This will be about 20 minutes of a play. This play is called Speak Truth to Power. And this is part of a joint effort between NGIC, Robert F. Kennedy Human Rights, and our work with Zlatko Lugomdzija in Sarajevo. Now, I hear some people speaking in the back. Everybody, can you see me? Can you see me? Okay, so what we want to do is if my lips are moving, then yours are not. Can we do that? Is that okay? Shh, shh, shh. Oh, I still hear you. Shh. Okay, that's good. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. I appreciate that not because of me, but because of the people you're about to hear. These are almost all former heads of state, and they're all going to take on the words of human rights defenders around the world. And the point of this play is to show that human rights are universal, that every single one of our countries violate human rights, and every single one of our countries has incredible heroes who stand up and who speak truth to power. And just as a little bit of background, we use this play in classrooms all over the world. It's been used by over 5 million students, kindergarten through law school. They take on the roles of the human rights defenders, and through that, they find the courage in their own hearts to create change and to be engaged in creating a more just and peaceful world. That's what this is all about. That's why we're in this room tonight, and that's what this play is. So I hope you'll give this the attention that it deserves, and welcome our actors for Speak Truth to Power. I think I might have to open the door. Go to the left.
My name is Emir Suljagic. I was born in 1975 in Ljubovia, before we were forced to leave our home. Before the massacre of my family and neighbors and friends in Srebrenica. Before July 11th, 1995. Before men, attempting to reach freedom were gunned down and covered with dirt where they lay, or killed in warehouses and fields. Before the unspeakable horrors that we must speak, that I must spend my life speaking, before I lost more than I could ever imagine losing and still surviving. Before the 6,838 graves were carved into the earth. Before the more than 1,500 people who are still missing. Now I live in that aftermath. In the aftermath, some people try to forget. Others try to deny the genocide haven't happened. And this, for God of amnesia, there is no peace. There is no resolution. We must name it what it is. Genocide. And we must remember, because genocide does not happen in a vacuum, and it will repeat unless we speak out, speak our stories again and again, and take immediate actions so it does never happen to anyone, any place again. Speak truth to power.
My name is Marina Pisklakova. When I started the first domestic violence hotline in Russia in 1993, I was alone, answering calls 4 hours a day, every day, for 6 months. I was counseling people in person the other 4 hours. I couldn't say no. There were so many women. I had no training, no distance, no boundaries. Shortly after I started the hotline, I encountered the mother of one of my son's classmates in front of the school. Half of her face was severely bruised. She wouldn't tell me what had happened. One evening, a few days later, she called me. Her story shocked me. When her husband was wearing a suit and the bottom fell off and it wasn't fixed quickly, he took a shoe and slapped his wife in the face. For 2 weeks, she couldn't go out. She was really distressed and hurt physically, and emotionally hurt because half her face was black and blue. I asked her, why don't you just leave him? A very typical question. And she said, where would I go, Marina? I said, divorce him, get another apartment. She said, I depend on him completely. And in this exchange, I saw everything. The way the abuser was consolidating control, decreasing self-confidence, and diminishing self-esteem. So I started thinking that I should help her. I should refer her to somebody. And then I realized that there was nowhere to go. In Russia, there is a saying, he beats you, that means he loves you. I now knew the meaning of that saying. I asked myself, what can you do about a cultural attitude? But I knew what I had to do. I started the hotline. There have been some bad moments along the way. One time I picked up the phone and male voice started saying,
what is this number?
I was cautious since it was not common for a man to call our hotline.
I know who you are. I know your name. I know where you're located. I know where you live. And I am going to come there with some guys and kill you.
Well, my husband was there with me at the time, and I was really scared. Though I said to the man on the phone, I'm not afraid of you, and just hung up. I'm not an extraordinary person. Any woman in my position would do the same. I feel, however, that I'm really lucky because I was at the beginning of something new, a great development in Russia, a new attitude. Now everybody is talking about domestic violence, and many are doing something about it. Speak truth to the power.
My name is Frank Mugisha. I'm from Uganda. I was 6 or 7 years old when I realized I was attracted to people of my own sex. I thought I was alone. My classmates were expelled just for rumors of being gay. Then their fathers threatened to kill them or their families, threw them out of house. My fear increased. I decided that I would never tell anyone, so I tried to fit in and be like my colleagues. I tried to change myself. I prayed to God, it wasn't working. At 14, I told someone because I couldn't keep it anymore. The moment you come out and say you are gay in Uganda, the attacks begin. Friends and family reject you. Employers throw you out of your job. You never know who is going to harass you, bully you, assault you in the streets, or arrest you, and then torture you. The family of a lesbian will ask the uncle to rape the girl and teach her to be a woman. Many friends and colleagues have been murdered. I can't go out casually. I can't just go shopping. I don't know if it is safe to use public transportation. Before I leave my house, I have to calculate, will it be safe? Yes, I must. Because just appearing on television in Uganda, and speaking out helps many people accept themselves. They know they are not alone in the world. They know that there is a voice out there for them. That is where I get my courage, knowing that every day of my life, every minute of my life, I make a very small difference, but that small difference has a huge impact on so many different people. Speak truth to power.
My name is Vajrovic. I was born in Riga just before the Second World War, and on October 10, 1944, my parents decided that it looked like the Red Army was advancing, and they did take Riga on October the 13th. So on the evening of October the 10th, we took what we could carry. I had a small suitcase with the diapers of my baby sister Marit, who died within 3 weeks of us leaving home. My grandmother was holding me by the hand, and we got to the first street corner, and I had a strange feeling that I am leaving behind my home and everything, and I stopped at the corner and looked back. My grandmother grabbed me by the shoulder and said, "Child, do not do that. It is bad luck. If you look back when you are leaving a place, you're never going to return to it." And curiously enough, at that moment, I felt a voice inside my head. The kind of power that goes beyond the sort of power we're talking about here, the power of the inner voice. And the inner voice said to me, "She's both right and wrong. You will never see her again, but you will see your home again, but it will not be your home." And I did. In 1969, I did return, and there was a Russian family living in the apartment that we had left back in 1944. Subsequently, the place was burned down, and that place is no more, but I do have my home and I do have my conscience.
My name is Kailash Satyarthi. When I was a little boy, there was a man and his son who ran a shoe shine stand outside my school. I couldn't understand why the boy who was about my age was in school like me. One day, when I was 6 years old, there was a very heavy rain. When I was coming back to school from lunch, I saw the man beating his son, who was crying for help. I rushed to them and I asked the father, "Why? What is wrong with you? Why are you beating your son?" He gestures to the soggy shoes on the ground and said, "Don't you see that all these shoes are destroyed? I presumed that there would be rain. So I gave my son a plastic sheet to cover our customer's shoes. But instead, he covered himself." The father had no answer to my question because I asked him, "Don't you think that the head and the body of your son are much more precious than those shoes?" He stared, weeping. At that moment, I realized that if you speak with conviction and tell the truth, things can change. That was the beginning. Today, we work in thousands of villages in India and over 140 countries all over the world. Child labor is not an isolated problem. Globalized markets, transitional corporations, consumer demands for cheap goods, all these cumulatively create and perpetuate child labor globally. We have emancipated over 100,000 children from slavery, but we can't do it all. That is why it is critical that we build a worldwide movement. We must globalize compassion, speak truth to power.
My name is Marian Wright Edelman. I was 14 when my dying father urged me to get an education. African American children were forced to attend different schools, remote schools, rundown schools, schools with far less funding than white schools. I was undeterred. I was born in the Jim Crow era South, with laws mandating every manner of exclusion for African Americans, always segregated and separated. There were drinking fountains labeled for colored people. Restaurants could refuse service, and public buses had a section for whites in the front and a section for non-whites in the back. I was undeterred. I wanted to end the system that had limited my opportunities, and I became the first African American woman to pass the Mississippi bar exam to practice law. I served as counsel for Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s Poor People's Campaign. One thing I remember about working with Dr. Martin Luther King is how he looked scared. I remember him saying how terrified he was of the police dogs in the back of the car when he was being taken out of the rural Georgia after he was arrested. He used to say, "You can be scared, but you shouldn't let it paralyze you. You don't have to see the whole stairway to take the first step. If you can't run, walk. If you can't walk, crawl. If you can't crawl, just keep moving. Just keep moving. Just keep moving. Speak truth to power."
Thank you. I think I'm going to break the tradition from the start here. Before I read the story, I was really surprised by some association. I don't know how this could happen, but sometimes things happen for a reason. The person I'm going to speak or read the story on behalf of works for Partners in Health. And this organization was actually co-founded by my very good friend and my dear brother, Dr. Paul Farmer. He died recently, as you know, very young to die. He was teaching at Harvard University, co-founding Partners in Health, and dedicated his life to helping people who needed help, and mainly in Haiti, Rwanda, but many other countries. After his death, of course, we were all shocked, and we gave him a recognition from WHO. He was one of the awardees during our assembly at the end of May. He was the global winner of the award, one of the 6, and his wife, Dr. Didi Bertrand, had received the award. So this is an organization I will be representing today, and also Louis Villon, who are very close to me. And I was wondering how this happened, although Kerry Kennedy couldn't have any explanation. We miss Paul Farmer. He was such a great person. He sacrificed himself actually for others. Such an incredible human being. And when I was asked before I saw, I was even saying I have another commitment and so on. But I'm really glad that I didn't miss the opportunity to read this story, which belongs to his institution and someone whom I am really proud of. So sorry for breaking the tradition, but I hope you wouldn't mind because of the coincidence which I told you. So I will now go to the story. By the way, the person I'm going to represent today also, I have seen her photo, and she looks more like me, but she's a woman. So for tonight, I'm a woman. My name is Luen Diop. I have seen a lot of death here in Haiti. At one of our rural clinics, 15-year-old Isaac lay dying. He had traveled 8 hours on a rocky, unpaved road from his home to receive medical care. By the time he arrived, microbes had bored holes through his small intestine and caused severe peritonitis. Isaac contracted typhoid because he did not have access to clean water. He was an IDP kid, one of thousands, a victim of the non-disbursement of long-needed pre-approved loans from the Inter-American Development Bank. He died a few days later. Loans denied to Haiti would have provided money for health centers, rural roads, and potable water, programs that might have saved Isaac and hundreds of thousands like him. With our partners, we filed a Freedom of Information Act petition, and we discovered that the loans were withdrawn illegally under political pressure in order to undermine the government of Haiti. We sued the Inter-American Development Bank and got the loans restored. Now the water flows cleanly. Who among us can claim to speak for the poor or for those who have their rights abused? What I can say with confidence is that I represent a group of people, many of them Haitians, and many of them not, who are fighting for the rights of the poor merely to survive. I'm Haitian, and the Haitian people have always stood for equality. This is our human rights struggle. Speak truth to power. Then again, I will break maybe another tradition. I should have transferred it to her. I would have also loved, Isaac's story is amazing. Of course, he died, he didn't benefit from what happened. Of course, others could benefit. But I wish I had also the opportunity, like Madam President, to speak, to tell my own story, because I am a war child. Imagine a story, someone who has been a war child, who knows the smell of war, the image of war, the sound of war, and who has become the Director General of WHO. I think that would have been. But now I'm really glad to be a member of Baku. I'm one of you. I'm glad to be your family. So I will tell you that story some other time. Now I pass on to Madam President.
Thank you. Thank you. My name is Malala Yousafzai. In January 2009, when I was in 7th grade, I started blogging for the BBC about a Taliban edict in Pakistan's Swat Valley that banned girls like me from going to school. I wanted to scream, shout, and tell the whole world what we are going through, but it was not possible. The Taliban would have killed me, my father, my whole family, so I chose to write with a different name, and it worked. My valley has been freed. Still, I paid a price. On October 9th, 2012, the Taliban shot me on the left side of my forehead as I rode the bus home from school. They shot my friends too. They thought that the bullets would silence us, but they failed. Suddenly, The few of us calling for justice in Pakistan were joined by thousands of voices around the world. The terrorists thought that they would change our aims and crush our ambitions, but nothing changed in my life except this. Weakness, fear, and hopelessness died. My courage is as strong as ever. I am the same Malala. My ambitions are the same. My hopes are the same. My dreams are the same. Speak truth to power.
My name is Amoyele Sowore. I was first arbitrarily arrested by the Nigerian Department of State Services in August 2019, following my call for peaceful protests critical of the government's human rights abuses and corruption. I was arbitrarily detained for 143 days on baseless charges, despite repeated court orders for my release. Over the course of 7 months, the Nigerian authorities subjected me to a series of abuses, including unlawful arrests, arbitrary detention, and egregious due process violations, all because of my attempts to exercise my fundamental rights to freedom of expression and freedom of peaceful assembly. I have been charged with the crime of treason. My original trial date was postponed on 4 separate occasions due to the prosecution employing frivolous delay tactics in order to prolong the length of trial. The government wants to use the charges against me and the delay tactics as a sword of Damocles over my head, but I will not stop fighting for a better Nigeria. All that is needed for a revolution is for the oppressed to choose a date they desire for liberty, not subjected to the approval of the oppressor. Speak truth to power.
If we don't do this, who will? My name is Digna Ochoa. I am a nun and a lawyer. My father was a union leader in Veracruz, Mexico. In the sugar factory where he worked, he was involved in the struggles for running water, roads, and securing land certificates. Then he was disappeared and tortured. The charges against him were fabricated. And then I myself was disappeared and held incommunicado for 8 days by the police. Now I felt in the flesh what my father had felt, what other people had suffered. I've always felt anger at the suffering of others. If an act of injustice doesn't provoke anger in me, it could be seen as indifference, as passivity. One time, we filed an habeas corpus on behalf of a man who had been disappeared for 20 days. The authorities denied having him in custody and then denied us access to the state hospital where we knew he was being held. During a change in shifts, I slipped in. I got to the door of his room, took a deep breath, opened the door violently, and yelled at the federal judicial police officers inside. I told them they had to leave immediately because I was the person's lawyer and needed to speak with him. They didn't know how to react, so they left. I had 2 minutes, but it was enough to get him to sign a piece of paper proving he was in the hospital. Then the police came back, fierce. They didn't expect me to assume an attack position. The only position in karate I know, I think, is from the movies, I suppose. Of course, I don't know really karate, but they thought I was going to attack. Trembling inside, I said that if they laid a hand on me, they'd see what would happen. And they drew back. And they said, "You are threatening us." And I said, "Take it any way you want. Speak truth to power."
My name is Yulia Marchel. I am 33 years old and I'm from Ukraine. I am the founder of Let's Do It Ukraine, an environmental organization that mobilizes youth to clean up our forests, beaches, and cities. When Russia invaded Ukraine, I escaped to Poland. I immediately started organizing truckloads of food, clothes, and medical supplies, sanitary napkins, anything we could get donated, back to Ukraine. My network of environmental activists became humanitarian volunteers, driving needed goods to the front lines of the war. During one of our supply runs, the Russian army shot and killed one of our volunteer drivers. We decided to get bulletproof vests for our colleagues in Ukraine. When our volunteers learned that each vest cost $300, they refused to take them. They said, better to spend the money on supplies that will save other Ukrainians. We know we need to risk our lives for our country. Speak truth to power. No?
What was the next? We're supposed to say speak truth to power together, but we didn't.
Well, apparently we didn't do it in report.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much to our cast. Thank you to our audience for listening so attentively. I want to just reiterate that these are just some of the countries. Every country has these heroes. Azerbaijan has extraordinary heroes who have suffered unspeakable torture and imprisonment through no fault of their own, and as every country does. So we thank you, we honor you, we work with you, and we pledge to continue the fight for respect for human rights. Thank you so very much, and good night.